Hello and welcome everyone. It is time to enter the Kumite. I'm joined today by my friend and fellow colleague, Daniel Caballero.
Hello, hello.
And our technical engineer, the 9-4 Ninja himself, Sean Myers. This episode we will be digging into Canelo Alvarez versus Billy Joe Saunders fight.
A great boxing match, mixing it up a little bit. I know we are an MMA podcast, but something that's included in mixed martial arts is boxing.
Boxing is a part of that.
I'd
part
say
of the mixed
so.
martial
Whenever
arts.
you use your hands, yeah.
It's isolated. It's isolated.
Very isolated, but still a
it's
huge
combat
part.
sports. It's tough. I mean, these guys are warriors too, you know.
Yes.
Canelo coming into this fight is 53-1, coming off a knockout win over Sergey Kovalev. He's currently ranked number 1 pound for pound active boxers. Canelo's a Mexican fighter. Canelo's actually Spanish for the masculine word for cinnamon. I always wondered what that nickname meant, Canelo. You know, apparently cinnamon is like a common nickname for people with red hair in Mexico.
Yeah, okay.
I'm like, I would have never guessed that. I guess cinnamon is kind of a reddish brown.
It is. It has that tint, that color to it.
Auburn brown.
That's funny.
His mother also has red hair.
And I know that comes from, he has a little bit of Irish in him, doesn't he?
He says there's probably Irish ancestry along his lineage. He doesn't actually know, but a lot of people associate red hair with the Irish soldiers who fought for Mexico in the Mexican-American War.
Homeboy
in the St. Patrick's
to just go ahead and Ancestry.com that stuff.
I mean, dude, just fucking send your spit in. They got it.
That's all you need to do, bro.
You got the money for it. This dude's loaded.
Very cool history, though. Being
yeah.
able to be a part of those two different cultures that both are riddled with, warriors in them.
Mm-hmm. He's actually bullied at an early age. They call him Chicame con Chile. Chicame con Chile. Man, I'm butchering it. But it translates basically to Mexican turnip with chili flakes. It's a snack in Mexico.
I think that J would be silence.
Jicama con Chile. Jicama con Chile. Yeah. Okay, there it is. Man, what can we say about Canelo? He's won multiple world championships in 4 weight classes, from light middleweight to light heavyweight, including unified titles in 3 out of those 4 weight classes. Unified, 4 different organizations?
Definitely has a resume under him. It's crazy to think, though. Why do you think it is that boxers have such bigger records? Like, why are they able to fight? Or do they fight more often in a year than MMA fighters do?
Some of them do. Once they get to that legendary status, they don't. But the thing about boxing, and this is, even most boxing fans will recognize and acknowledge this, they set them up with tomato can fights.
Yeah.
They try to build a name off of them before they put them against big fights. They try to give them at least 25 to sometimes even 35 tomato can fights, easy fights to set up a highlight reel, make people believe in them, build up a hype train, and then ride that hype train into the big leagues.
And why don't you think that the UFC does things similar to that?
Because the UFC is completely set up on having the best fighters. That's what they're trying to do. That's their entire goal. In boxing, anybody can box. I mean, I'm not saying anybody can box. There's obviously a lot of talent that goes into it, physical genetics and, IQ, understanding of the sport, doing it from a young age, so it's like instilled in you. But it's not about having all of the best fighters. There's all these different organizations. Yeah. None of them have the UFC doesn't have a monopoly on MMA, but it almost has a sense of monopoly in they have all the best fighters. It's just recognized by most of the world that the UFC has the best fighters. UFC can't afford to have bad fighters. What do UFCs do to fighters when they're on a losing streak? They cut them. Nope, you have to be the best.
I agree with that, man, but I do definitely think that some of these other organizations are becoming ones to have some of these talents. It was so surprising to me when Demetrius Johnson got cut from the UFC. He is and still one of the best.
He got traded,
but that's what's happening to these organizations, that they're doing these kind of trades. ONE FC, even Bellator might be coming.
Bellator's picking up a lot of the hand-me-downs.
They're picking up hand-me-downs, but these hand-me-downs are putting in some work.
Well,
some of them have come up.
Gegard Mousasi could have been middleweight champion.
Yeah,
Gegard Mousasi was very technical, and he still competes with the top 5 of middleweight today.
What is the name of the chick who's in the Professional Fighters League? I remember you wanted to do a
Kayla Harrison.
Kayla Harrison. She's a monster, and she's taking out people left and right. They're already talking about setting her up against Amanda Nunes. Like,
well, it's kind of just in the talks out there in the grapevine. It's not really being done. PFL's paying her very well, and the UFC doesn't have a lightweight division for females.
oh, okay.
Doesn't have a women's lightweight, and she says she doesn't want to cut down to featherweight.
Yeah.
And featherweight's like the biggest one and very empty in UFC. You know, so the competition is kind of vacant in the featherweight.
Well, I definitely know
right
that the UFC has a lot to, long ways to go to follow in the footsteps of boxing. But let's get back to this fight. Canelo Alvarez. Tell me more about what happened in this fight.
Well, let's get into Saunders too, because let's talk about who he is and where he's coming from. Saunders came in here 26-0, undefeated, coming off a knockout win over Marcelo Esteban Caceres. Number 6 best active middleweight in the world right now, coming out of Britain. He's held world championships in 2 weight classes. He has the WBO middleweight title, and he had the WBO middleweight title. I guess he got stripped from it. Man, I need to look into that. And he had the WBO super middleweight title that he just lost to Canelo.
Yeah.
But, man, Canelo just keeps getting better. Canelo's ability to slip just out of the way and deliver a counter immediately, it honestly reminds me of Mike Tyson.
So ridiculous.
It reminds me of Mike Tyson, but even better defense, because he keeps a tight guard at all times. He's able to have that crazy good, intricate head movement, but with a responsible guard at all times.
Constantly focused, constantly having his hands up protecting himself, being able to slip in and out and just deliver is so beautiful.
Another good thing about Canelo's build, he has the shorter arms, he's a stockier frame, but he has that shorter torso. So just having his elbows down and his guard up, he's protecting a lot of his body.
And I think that was definitely a good counter against Sanders' jab. Sanders has a nasty jab, and he likes to leave it out there and constantly go for more.
Yeah, he'll double up on his jab.
Yep.
One on the guard and one through, or maybe he'll jab into a left hook.
And while that's good, keeping Canelo at bay, Canelo still has his guard up and is able to slip around it, man.
He's so quick with his slips, his slip counters. Yeah, he kept slipping that jab and ripping him to the body, or he kept slipping that jab and going for an uppercut.
It left Saunders pretty exposed, especially the amount of time he was leaving his arm out there. I felt like he just gave Canelo perfect timings to get around it.
Yeah, and that was one thing, I would have said for anybody coming into a Canelo fight, you need the jab to keep him off you. But if you don't time it just perfectly, you're going to pay for it.
Exactly.
And Canelo, man, his defense is looking so good. It's a Mexican-style defense and Mexican-style push. Floyd Mayweather has the Philly shell defense and is a genius at that. A genius at rolling, a genius at knowing when to block, a genius at knowing when to get the hell out of there. Canelo doesn't get out of there. He has that Mexican style, like, staunchly, plot forward.
Yep.
And, like, I'm going to block myself, and if you don't protect your body, I'm going to rip you the body. If you don't protect your head, I'm going to rip you to the head. That's why he's so fun to watch. He's always going for the finish, constantly trying to break their spirit.
Oh, yeah.
One thing I will say, Saunders did have a good jab, and it was working. It was working more for him than against him in this fight, honestly. Early on, in the early rounds with Canelo, it was doing some work. It wasn't doing too much damage because Canelo's defense, but it was making Canelo have to reset and then try to push on him. His dip to right hook, beautiful. It ended up getting him caught in the very end, but we'll get to the very end when we get there. Canelo is so good at committing to the body. He's not a headhunter at all. No. He waits for you to leave the head there.
He's also a shorter guy. He's only 5'9", and I know Saunders pushing 5'11", 6 foot. Yeah, exactly.
In this division, he's small, but he just keeps moving up and taking belts.
Perfect reason for him to be able to need to not clinch up, but tighten his guard, go in and stay in. He can't get out of that pocket because it only leaves Saunders the room to work from that distance.
He's like an iron turtle.
Mexican Ninja Turtle right there.
Mexican Ninja Turtle, bro. What's up? Saunders was forced to be unpredictable to land these shots on Canelo. He ended up later in the fight dropping his hands more and more because he was trying to get around Canelo's guard because Canelo's defense was so good. It was forcing him to do that, and being unpredictable and fighting that way also leaves him vulnerable to those counters.
It does.
So, because at first it was hard for Canelo to really get anything off on him. He would get him to the body here and there, but Saunders is doing a really good job of using his length, staying at bay, and he had very good lateral movement. Is one thing I noticed, and it was really hard for Canelo to come forward because Canelo likes to come forward. He will do cutoffs if he's reset. If he just freshly reset, he'll make sure to step and cut you off. Otherwise, when he's coming forward, he's only coming forward. He's not resetting in the middle of his advance.
Oh yeah, he's gonna constantly put that pressure on you. It just shows, man. Like he said, he went up 2 weight divisions for this fight, and you gotta believe he stacked on some muscle because he did some damage to Saunders.
Yeah. I mean, with the finish, Canelo pulled on the right hook, and then he just catches him on Saunders' roll.
Perfect
Saunders,
uppercut.
Yeah. Caught him right on the eye. It actually caved his eye in. There's multiple orbital fractures. Eddie Hearn actually confirmed that Saunders had stayed overnight at a Dallas hospital because of the injury, which turned out to be, like I said, multiple fractures in the orbital area. This is a quote from Eddie Hearn. His eye socket was caved in and he couldn't see. I didn't get the response I wanted from him. I didn't get the response I needed in the corner, and I knew it was caved in. I'm not surprised I got the response I got. I had to pull it. He never said, no, that's it. He left it to me. He took it well. He was in pain. Because a lot of people were upset, and they called him a quitter.
Wow.
For not continuing. But it wasn't him who
I don't
quit.
think you can say that to even.
Exactly.
No.
He told his coach what happened.
Yep.
And his coach said, I don't want you to fight anymore.
I would be upset with my coach if he didn't pull me because like every fighter is gonna have that pride to want to go in. If he can stand,
They're not going to want to do it themselves.
Some of them will have that pride. I've seen like you can.
No, I'm saying most of them don't want to call it.
No, exactly.
They're like, that'll make me look weak.
Exactly, but
you can't have that.
Having that
aura.
person in your corner to trust, to know that like, look, man, I know you want to go, but you can't right now.
I mean, he's young. He's young. He was 26-0.
Even
He
with
fought
this
Canelo Alvarez. Don't take it to heart. Canelo,
Yes.
with the love of God, I hope he'll retire soon. And he is just clearing out all these weight. He's gonna be challenging Tyson Fury in no time. Just wait.
But with the damage that Saunders took, I'm reading right now. This is through Bleacher Report by Tyler Conway. It says Mike Copinger of the Athletic reported Saunders suffered a quadrupod fracture in his orbital bone. Stopped after 8 rounds. Going to need several months of recovery time, and there's no guarantee if he's going to be able to resume his career. That's what they're reporting right now. There's no
because that injury is going to come back up in the fight.
Oh, I mean, you fractured his face. Like, unless it's able to completely restore, and I know, like, because I tore my ACL, and I know that's nowhere close to your face, but they even said then that, like, scar tissue sometimes returns to be, stronger than the original tissue. However, this is, fractured bones. Are they going to have to put a metal in his face? Like, what's going to happen then to him or to even the other fighters if they punch him again?
Well, I would say Cyborg's husband, Chris Cyborg's husband, Evangelista Cyborg, he was in Bellator and he fought Michael Venom Page, and he took a flying knee and it caved in his forehead.
I did see that.
It caved in his skull.
Oh my God.
He never came back.
Exactly.
So, I mean, usually they use titanium rods, like the update on Chris Weidman, with his, snapped bones.
Yeah.
He said they put a titanium rod in there. I guess they have some plating they put in.
I feel like that only helps the fighter. I'm now hitting you with titanium shins.
The way that right, but the way that it connects to bone.
Oh yeah, I know it's not really, but that's just how it sounds.
Yeah, right.
I have titanium leg kicks come at me.
Yeah, those low calf kicks, your leg is done.
Isn't that what they use?
Son.
Have you ever seen the movie Kick-Ass?
I have seen that movie.
That's like his reasoning for becoming any bit of super is that he pretty much gets his ass whooped by getting jumped by a bunch of thugs, and they have to put so much metal and rods and shit in him that he just can't feel anything, and is for some reason stronger now. That's their
that's what they ran with?
Yeah. So I'm using that logic to
be
say
a superhero now.
Canelo's gonna go ahead.
That's a bad idea. You didn't learn from this devastating injury. But yeah, man, that was a good fight. Saunders did pretty well, but I mean, Canelo is just on another level.
Yes, he is.
Canelo Alvarez is only 30 years old, guys.
Yeah, he's still young. He's still very young. He still has a whole career in front of him.
Oh man, yeah, he's definitely gonna be challenging for the heavyweight championship soon.
You think he
Anthony Joshua, look out, bro. This man is coming for you. I mean, honestly, dude, I don't see
30 years. Guadalajara.
I don't know enough of the young and upcoming fighters. I know there's no way he's defending all of these titles from everybody. You know, I know there's no way he's doing that because he's keep moving up and just taking these big fights and taking all this money. I don't know how long it takes for boxing to strip someone of a title. I know UFC, if it's been a year and you haven't defended it, you better get out of that division.
Yeah.
But I don't know how boxing does it. But they do have a lot of, their biggest fighters have a lot of belts.
They do. It's always crazy to see because you just wonder, like, where are all these coming from?
Yeah.
There's so many. So many people have so many of them.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different organizations, and then there's all the different weight classes. Yep. Like twice as many weight classes as UFC.
Oh, I know. But that just makes it easier for the fighter not having to have these crazy weight cuts. Because wasn't there a fighter this weekend that didn't make weight for the UFC bout?
Yeah, he's off by about 5 pounds.
It's so hard.
Still lost. He lost to Gregor Gillespie.
Yeah.
It was Diego Ferreira.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Against Gregor Gillespie. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But Gregor said him like, with the weight cut, he definitely wouldn't have lasted as long as he did with the But yeah, that's really unprofessional. But UFC does put that like you got to move up by 10 pounds, sometimes 20 pounds.
Exactly.
15 pounds in between.
What is your opinion on that? Do you think they should add more weight divisions? How many? Like, what is your take?
I think Dana White has a point when he says that it's gonna muddle down the divisions. He wants UFC to only be the best fighters. Mm-hmm. That's what he wants. He wants that persona, that aura of the best fighters are in UFC. Mm-hmm. And that's why he doesn't put up with people on losing streaks.
Yeah.
That's why he doesn't put up with people. His only thing is he wants people that make money. So even if you're winning, if you're not exciting, he doesn't want to keep you. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing really. But he's doing a good job at keeping that air of we're the best.
Yeah.
We have the best.
And I'm not the biggest fan of him wanting to, like, I'd rather him stick with fighters that are the best rather than fighters that make money. Because the perfect example is Colby Covington.
He had to change his whole persona.
He had to
pretend like he was a fucking asshole.
Huge, like, Trump MAGA guy and now everybody hated him, but he brought in the numbers.
Yeah.
And I mean, like,
they paid to watch him lose.
It did, yeah. They paid to watch him lose a few more times.
That was Floyd Mayweather's plan.
Exactly.
I'm going to make you not like me, so you pay money to watch me win, but you want me to lose.
And I mean, he doesn't need, because eventually if he keeps on going...
hate and your money. Thank you.
If Dana keeps on going this route of I'm just going for money, eventually the UFC is going to look like that Jake Paul fight. Because that made more money than anything. Well, is that what you want, or do you want these fighters that are the best?
But see, Dana, he's only taken, I think it's just one. He's only taken one fighter that wasn't really prepared for the UFC. And that was CM Punk.
I was thinking exactly
him. CM Punk.
Yep.
Was a WWE wrestler, so he was in a combat sports. I know you guys can't see it, but I'm doing air quotes. So that was really Dana's only like branch out from that and trying to bring in celebrity fights, and that went really bad.
Well, he thought he thought CM Punk would be a Brock Lesnar, but even Brock Lesnar, he relied on his like brute, big monsterness.
Well, Brock was also a collegiate wrestler.
Yeah,
Brock can wrestle,
but he can't stand up.
He can't take a hit. That was Brock's problem. Brock, with the whole time he was in UFC, was fighting off a disease.
Homeboy was fighting like 3 fights at once.
He was diagnosed with mononucleosis, but later in the month it was discovered that he had a serious case of diverticulitis.
There's some really bad illnesses, but I do hope he's doing okay now.
Okay, guys, with that, we will wrap up our thoughts on boxing's Alvarez versus Saunders main event. I'd like to thank you, Daniel, for being here and sharing your thoughts. I'd like to thank our technical engineer, the Knife Row Ninja himself, Sean Myers. I'd also like to thank the fighters for going up on the world stage and laying it all on the line. Lastly, but certainly not least, I'd like to thank everyone who entered the Kumite with us here today. Remember, this is not a sport. You don't play fight.